The 11th Panchen Lama of Tibet, Jesu Tenzin Lekshay Pinzopel Sangbo, commonly known as Gendu Chogyinima, is turning 35 this year, and for the last 29 years, Tibetans and supporters have not forgotten about him. Their hope for his freedom continues to this day despite the Chinese government's claim. To discuss more on the whereabouts of the 11th Panchen Lama and CCP's statement on Panchen Lama, we have invited Mr. Tenzin Lekshay, the CTA Spokesperson and Additional Secretary of International Relations of DIR, to tell us more. It's good to have you back, Lekshay.
Thank you.
Lekshay, straight to the most important question. For the last 29 years, the world, apart from the Chinese government, have absolutely no idea about the whereabout about the 11th Panchen Lama, and it's most likely the top-notch classified information on the part of the CCP to the world. So what is your thought on why Chinese government is not disclosing the information on Panchen Lama so far?
The problem here is that soon after His Holiness recognized the 11th Panchen Lama, after a week, the Chinese themselves has appointed another boy to be claimed as Panchen Lama. So now there are two Panchen, one recognized by His Holiness Dalai Lama, one the Chinese government has recognized. So for China, if the issue might be that China, if they disclosed the Panchen Lama recognized by His Holiness, and then the reverence and the faith of the Tibetan people and all over the world will go to Gendu Chogyinima. Then what will happen to the Chinese appointed Panchen Lama? His legitimacy, his authority. So there is this issue that China wants to have their own candidate to be on the top, to be the one to decide about the fate of the Tibetans in the future. So therefore, China has deliberately didn't disclose the whereabouts of the Panchen Lama, right? Because they thought that their own candidate is the rightful authority of Panchen Lama. Unfortunately, or as a matter of fact, nobody believes, not even in Tibetans, inside Tibet, but elsewhere, there is no reverence to the Chinese appointed Panchen Lama. So this is the real facts. So China is still in the confusions, right, whether to disclose or not to disclose. They themselves know that the legitimacy was not there for the Chinese appointed Panchen Lama. But unfortunately, both are Tibetan boy, both are Tibetan child, and China has made a crime against not just Gendu Chogyinima, but against the Chinese appointed Panchen Tenzin also. Because he was also a child who was being put into such a position.
And can you talk to us about the significance of the Panchen Lama lineage?
Panchen Lama lineage, when you go back, it is very close. Panchen Lama, the lineage itself is very close to His Holiness. The name Panchen itself has very much connected to His Holiness Dalai Lama also. So they are like sun and moon to the Tibetans. So when it is sun and moon to the Tibetans, then it itself shows how relevant Panchen Lama is to the Tibetans. So therefore, Panchen Lama, therefore China knows that. China knows that Panchen Lama has certain authorities, right, for the reincarnation of His Holiness in the future, right. So therefore, they are politicizing his role to make sure that they had their own positions, right, in a upper hand. But somehow there is no reverence. Now still in Tibet, the visibility of Chinese appointed Panchen Lama's photo was almost not there, right. There are the 10 Panchen Lama's photo was more prominent, more visible, right, than the 11th Panchen. So what does it mean? that clearly shows that the Tibetans do not believe and have faith on the Chinese appointed Panchen Lama. But now the question is, where is the Kendun Chögyam Nyima? So unfortunately, even the UN doesn't know about it. The UN being the defender of the human rights. And Kendun Chögyam Nyima has been the youngest political prisoner. He was abducted at the age of 6. It should be the matter of the urgency, matter of priority for the UN. But UN still did not find the whereabouts of Panchen Lama. Why? Because China has so much role to play, even in the UN mechanisms. So China, the geopolitics works with China, right? And whatever pressures the UN bodies has been putting on to China, but China has been always the offender, not the defender of human rights. Therefore, China couldn't disclose the whereabouts of Panchen Lama.
And over the last 2 decades, Chinese government has come up with different statements and on the status of the 11th Panchen Lama. They have said occasionally like he's at the risk of being kidnapped and he's studying and he's a college-going student in China and he's an ordinary citizen who do not wish to be disturbed. So what do you understand by these statements by the Chinese government and what do you make of it?
Over the years, they have put different statements on Panchen Lama when the international communities talk about Panchen Lama. Sometimes they say that he shouldn't be disturbed, he's doing well in studies, he's doing fine, he's going to colleges. So there are many things that China has been giving excuses to subside the matter. But somehow they are not one to tell the world that the Panchen Lama is not to be disturbed. Right? The Panchen Lama should come forward, should have the freedom to face the world, to tell that he shouldn't be disturbed, if he shouldn't be disturbed. Right? So therefore, Chinese government cannot be the voice of Panchen Lama. If Panchen Lama really do not have to be disturbed, then the world should know from his own words, not from the words of the Chinese government, right? Because nobody trusts the Chinese government. So far, whatever Chinese government has been doing is not based on truth, and the world knows about it. So therefore, the case about Panchen Lama, when you go back to the UN, is Mary Robinson. When Mary Robinson was the UN chief for Human Rights Commission, on her visit to China, she spoke about, she raised the issue about Panchen Lama to the Chinese government officials. But Chinese government officials excused themselves by saying that he's not there in Beijing. So somehow they are also lingering, right, with excuses. So right now, Panchen Lama is at 35. He's an adult. Right? If he went to colleges, if he got a proper education, formal educations, I think he deserves freedom to speak. Not the Chinese government. Chinese government cannot be the voice of Panchen Lama.
In one of these many statements that we just talked about, Chinese government also disclosed to the public that, or they also accepted that the 11th Panchen Lama is alive, whom they have abducted or kidnapped 29 years ago, right? And which is they also said he did not wish to be disturbed. So Tibetans around the world still hope for his freedom and assume his rightful place next to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So did you see this as the failure on the part of the international human rights bodies to protect the Panchen Lama, even though there have been many concerns were shown by the UN bodies over the years in the last 2 decades or so?
I think if UN is the real defender of the human rights, the first thing they should do is to clear up this long-pending issue about the well-being of the Panchen Lama. So they should put pressure on Chinese government and to disclose about the well-being of the Panchen Lama. Otherwise, we still do not know whether he's alive, whether he's not alive, what's his well-being. We still do not know. How can we trust the Chinese government? For the last 29 years, they've been sending lots of messages, and they were not able to show to the world, not even to the UN. So how can we trust the Chinese government on Panchen Lama?
And Lekshay, what is your appeal or message to the Chinese government over the current status and whereabout of the 11th Panchen Lama?
I think Chinese government, they are aspiring world leaders. They want to be on the top of the world. But to go on that ladder, they need to fulfill lots of responsibilities. So one responsibility for them is to be benign, right? To be humane. So I think Panchen Lama, even if it's an individual case of a young boy, right? His whole life was miserable. Even at the age of 6, he was abducted. Now he became 35. He's an adult. If he's alive, I think it is a high time for the Chinese to give freedom for him. I think the sooner will be better for the Chinese government to disclose the well-being and the whereabout of the Panchen Lama. And the world should also put pressures on the Chinese government. Right? If they cannot, right, if there is a human rights violation for a kid, a 6-year-old kid, who have not done any crime, then what will be the stature of Chinese human rights condition? That itself will be very visible for the world to see. So therefore, if China is aspiring to go higher, first thing, they have to be human. They have to look as being the human rights defender, and then disclose and show to the world the well-being and the whereabouts of Panchen Lama.
So, Lekshay, these are my questions. Thank you so much for talking to us on Panchen Lama.
Thank you. We hope that the awareness of Panchen Lama will go further to reach to the Chinese government.
Okay, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for watching, and see you all in the next episode of In Conversation with Tibettv.